Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Surfaces webinar. My name is Nick, and I will be doing the presentation with you today. Just like all of our previous webinars, this webinar will be recorded, so you will be able to go back and watch this at your own leisure. I'll also be sending out a PDF at the end of the class that will go through everything that we've talked about today. So that way you have some documentation to read up on as well. Just like all of our previous webinars, everyone will be on mute. So if you do have any questions at any point during the presentation, please feel free to go ahead and type those into the questions area. And at the end of the class, I'll go through and answer any questions that may have come up. Again, today's class is on surfaces, and my name is Nick. I'm just going to do a quick lesson overview of what we're going to cover today. So today we're going to be talking about surfaces. So do you ever need a custom countertop or a sloped concrete slab or any other custom horizontal element in your designs? You can use the Surfaces tool in Envisioneer to create surfaces in any shape, material, thickness, flat, or on a plane. We're going to look at how to insert a surface, and then we're going to look at how to manipulate a surface that has already been inserted. So first, let's take a look at the actual surface itself, or the surface command. You can use the Surfaces tool to create a custom floor, roof, or ceiling surface. First, you draw the surface by picking the points, then you define its slope. This lets you create a surface of any size, shape, or slope, which can be useful in special or complex construction situations. To do this, we're going to take a look at how to create a surface. So to do this, we're going to go up and we're going to select Insert, Surfaces, and Surfaces. So again, you can select the Insert option, and you can go down to Surfaces, and you can select the Surfaces option from the menu. Now that is through the menu option. You can also insert a surface by using the tab format. So you go under Building, and you can see the Surfaces button here. Click on the little arrow beside it, which will drop down the list of different elements for the surface, and you can see surfaces. Either one of those options will bring you to the catalog where you have different types of surface elements that you can use. So in this catalog, we're going to select the material that we want to use to create our surface, and then we're going to specify our 2 points to define the first edge of that surface. I'm going to use a roof surface for right now, and I'm just going to left click on that asphalt shingle roof surface, and I'm going to pick my first 2 points. I'm going to start here. I'm going to left click once. I'm going to move my mouse in the direction that I want to go. And when you do that, you'll also notice that the distance area becomes highlighted for you. This is just letting you know that you can type in your own distance here, and it will take in that value. So if I just type in 15 feet here and hit enter, it'll automatically drive that line down 15 feet for me. I can now again move my mouse in the direction that I want to go, and I'm going to move my mouse to the left, and I'm going to type in 15 feet. Hit enter, move my mouse up, and type in 15 feet. Just like that, I've added in my 3 points, and I don't actually need to go back into, my 4 points. I don't need to go back and select my first point. I can simply right click and select finish. Now, at any point during the construction of this surface, if I made a mistake or I typed in a wrong value, if I'm tracing over top of something and I misselected the wrong point, I can right click and I can select the step back option. And this step back option will allow you to step all the way back to that very first point that you selected. So it's a nice handy tool that enables you to fix your mistakes without canceling out of the whole command. We didn't make any mistakes in adding in these 4 points, so I'm just going to simply click the finish option. I just want to point out a quick note here that if the surface will be sloped, you start by drawing what will be the lower edge of the surface. So the surface will incline from this edge. So when I drew in my surface, my first 2 points were here and here. If this is going to be a sloped surface, which ours will be, this will become my lowest point. So when you're drawing your surfaces, it's important to know that if you're creating an actual sloped surface, those first 2 points denote the lowest point of that surface. So this will be my fascia edge of my surface. I'm going to go in here, and now this opens up the Define Surfaces dialog box, and now I can start to define exactly how I want this surface to look. So in here, I'm going to go in, and I'm going to highlight my different areas, and we're going to talk about each one of these. So if you want the, for our lower point, which is option A, if you want the lower edge of the surface to sit at a specific height, you enter the height in the lower point edit box. Then you click the icon next to lock that value in. Otherwise, this value will be a variable depending on the upper point or your slope value. So right now it's locked at 0. So this is telling me that no matter what I do to this, this lower point is always going to be at 0 inches high. If we look at the B upper point edit box, if you want the upper edge of your surface to sit a specific height, you would enter in that height value in this upper point edit box. Then click the lock icon to lock that value in. This way, either the lower point or the slope value fields must be unlocked in order to enable to enter in another upper point value. So if I know that my upper point should be a certain height, say I have a restriction on how high a roof can be, this is going to be the highest point of my roof, and that can only be 20 feet high, I would lock that value in here at 20 feet. I would type in 20 feet, and then I would lock that value in. Then I can go in and I can manipulate the actual slopes. So if I know that this should be a 4 and 12 slope, it's going to automatically adjust that lower point for me so that I know that my roof is not exceeding that 20-foot height. Using these lock options is going to enable you to lock in that value that you know needs to stay or can't change because it's a variable that you need to be at that size. The last option is the slope value option in here. And if you want the surface to have a specific slope, you enter the slope in the slope value edit box. By default, the slope is measured using the blank in 12 option, and you can use the drop-down list to change that. So if you want to change the rise and the run options, or if you want to make it a degree or percent, you can make those adjustments here and just select one of those. And then this dialog box will adjust accordingly. So you can actually see the degree value here and percent values. So again, you can control exactly how you want that to look. And again, if I lock that slope value in at 4, and let's say I want my lower point to be 8 feet, it'll automatically adjust that upper point for me. So that way I know that my roof is starting at 8 feet. It's locked in at a 4 and 12 slope. So the upper point needs to be 13 feet. The main thing to remember here is one of these values is always going to be locked. So you just need to determine what that value needs to be. If you don't have a hard value set, you can move those around and lock in the values that you need. But you usually have at least one value that you know needs to stay at that size. There's also a rotation option. This value determines the rotation of the surface direction, which represents the surface's upslope direction. Just note that this value can only be edited after the surface has been inserted. So right now it's grayed out. I can't do anything with it. And I'm just going to say OK to create that surface. So if I drop in a quick camera here, we can see that there's our slope surface. And again, I had it set at that 8-foot height. So when I look at this, I can see that it's rising up from that 8 foot from the terrain, and it's going to go 8 foot from my location, and then it is going to slope up to that 13 foot. Now, I said, if I go back into 2D, I said that I wanted this to be 8 feet high. If I select that surface, you can now see that it is set to 9 foot 5.5 inches. That is because our points are referenced to 0. So since my building location is set to 1 foot 5.5 inches, it is going down to that 0 value. So I'm going up 8 feet from 1 foot 5.5 inches. So the total number for that lower point is 9 foot 5.5 inches. So you want to make sure that you remember that when you're adjusting your values. And when you select a surface, don't be confused about it having a different number than what your location or what you specified. It's just remember that it's also taking into consideration the height above 0. So those values always go from 0. I'm going to go in and I'm going to create an opening in this surface. So I'm just going to left click on this surface, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to click cut opening. I can now add in an opening in this surface, and I'm just going to use my snap track tool here to find that last point. So again, I just move my cursor and it will automatically find that point for me. So if I wanted to add in any kind of openings in this surface, maybe I'm creating some kind of exterior patio and I want some sunlight to come through, I can add in openings. Or if this is for a roof and I want to cut out an opening around a dormer, simply select the surface, right click, and then select cut opening. If you want to remove an opening, you can again select that surface, right click, and you can now select remove opening. And then you can click on the edge of that opening and it will automatically remove the opening that you've added in. We can also curve our surfaces. This will be more used for elements like if you're creating a countertop or you're creating some kind of a flat surface that you want to have a curved edge. You can do it with a roof as well, but it's probably more going to be used for those flat horizontal surfaces like countertops and floors. You would just simply select the edge of the surface, right click, say curve, and then you can use the grip to pull it out and create your curved surface. So this will just curve that one edge, and you can do that for every single edge of your surface. So I can go around and curve this thing all the way around. Oops, edit, undo. And again, I'm just going to curve just this edge here, like so. So you get the idea of how you can curve an actual surface as well. I'm just going to Control Z back to the original. And next, I want to talk about editing your roof surface details. So the fascia, soffit, and gable settings on a roof surface details property page determine the appearance and the construction of the roof surface edges defined as your fascias or your gables. So in this particular case, when I look at this, I can't really tell what's going on with this roof. So what I do is I go up here to surfaces, and again, you can go to insert surfaces and select the roof edge type editor, or you can just go to your building tab, pull the drop down menu down beside the surfaces button, and you can select roof edge type editor. This will open up a dialog box on the right hand side that takes over the catalog, and you now see some arrows that show up in your design. So I already referred to the first 2 points that I select will always create a fascia, and when you look at the color chart over here, you can see that fascia is represented by the blue color. So I know that this area right here is my fascia. On either edge, I've made it a gable end. So again, referring to my chart, I can see here that I have a gable end on those 2 edges. And then I have my ridge. So right here at that purple color is representing my ridge. So that works out really well. I'm actually going to go in, I'm just going to say close for a second here. And I want to go in and I want to create another surface here. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to select this surface. I'm going to go right click, duplicate. And I'm just going to duplicate this off to the side. I'm going to rotate it from here, and I'm just going to go like that. And I'm going to go right click and move. And I'm just going to move this in so that it snaps to this corner. And this is going to bring up another command that we can use, which is called the Intersect Planes option. So we're basically going to be joining two surfaces together. So you can use the Intersect Planes tool to join two surfaces together. To join two surfaces, you select the edge of each surface that you want to extend. The Intersect Planes tool calculates the plane where the two surfaces would intersect in space and extends the surface edges to this plane. This tool is particularly useful when creating a complex roof configuration where different surfaces have different slopes. So in our 2D plan view, we're going to select the Insert Surfaces Intersect Planes. So again, under Insert Surfaces, little flyout, Intersect Planes, or again, under the Building tab, under Surfaces, use the drop down and select Intersect Planes. I'm now going to select the edges that I want to intersect. I want this edge to intersect with this edge. So I'm going to left click on this edge once, left click on this edge, and it will automatically fillet those two edges together to create a intersected surface. That is how you can intersect your planes to create different roof shapes. Now I can go right click and select finish. If I go back into my roof edge type editor, I'm going to go in and I can see that there's some things in here that might need to be adjusted. So as an example, in Envisioneer, whenever a roof meets a wall, it usually should be a gable end. So right now I have this set as a ridge. You can leave it as a ridge. Just remember it's going to add in a ridge board up here. So you can leave that as it is, or you can change those to be your gable ends as well. But right here, where these two surfaces meet, that is no longer a gable. So I don't want a soffit in here. So if I look at this in my 3D view, and I kind of move my camera around towards the inside, since it's set to be a gable, I can see that there's soffit material being displayed. I do not want that to happen. So I'm going to go back in the 2D, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to select that roof edge type editor option again. And I'm going to change these to be a hip, because this is a hip end. I have two surfaces meeting to create that hip. So I'm going to make one edge a hip, and I'm just going to go in and say, you're going to be a hip. And then I'm going to select none for the other one. I don't want to have two hip boards connected here. I only want one board to be reported. So that's why I make one set to none. So that way I'm only getting one hip edge created when two surfaces meet. This will only be the case when you have surfaces that attach to each other. Another example would be if you have a gable roof and you converted it to surfaces. So I'm just going to say close to that for a second. And if I add in a roof real quick here, and I do roof by picking points, and we'll just go like this. And I'm just going to convert these two to be a gable end. Hit to the gable, say OK. And if I convert this to be a surface, so I right click, convert the surfaces, and I can say I want that to be an asphalt shingle. I can go in and say under my roof edge type editor, you can see here that it automatically changed that to be set to none, because we don't want two ridge counts in here. We only want one ridge count. So by setting that to none, you're still going to see your ridge. It's just not going to be quantified as two. So I'm just going to click. And the other things that we can do in here is we can actually take advantage of this dialog, and we can start to edit how our roof edges look. So as an example, let's say I want this to be a squared gable end on all of these sides. So I would select the gable option. When I select the gable option, I can now look at the different variables underneath this for that particular gable end. And I can say this gable end, instead of being plain, I want to set this to be squared, or I want it to be a half hip or full hip. I'm going to set it to squared. I'm going to make this run 1 foot, and I'm going to make my soffit width 1 foot as well. You can make that however thick you want your gable soffit to be. I'm just going to set it to 1 foot for now. And then all I have to do is I actually have to apply it. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to click on each of these that I want to be my gable ends. And by clicking on those and making them gable, I've now adopted that new property. So if I go in and I look at this in that 3D view, and I just kind of move my camera here real quick, probably be easier to see here. We can now see that gable end has that squared look. And I apologize for the lag and jumpiness here. It's a combination of GoToMeeting and my computer here. But here you can see that gable end is now being squared off. And if I just put that in a rendered outline view, you can see that a little bit clearer. So that roof edge type editor tool is going to be very handy for whenever you convert or draw your roof surfaces in, and then you're able to go in and adjust each individual surface edge the way that you want. We can also add surface nodes in. So if I go back into 2D, and let's just say I want to change the shape of this roof. So I'm going to select this roof edge, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to say right click, and I'm going to say surface commands, and I'm going to select the add surface node. And I'm just going to left click right here. This creates a new surface node for me, and I can now manipulate this edge and move things around. So I can again go in and say right click, surface commands, add surface node. And this one, I'm not going to be too concerned about where it is. I just want to make a new node, and I'm going to stretch this out. And when you're doing commands like this, it's beneficial to use construction lines to have something to snap to. You don't want your fascia edges or your edges to be crooked like this. You want them to be nice and straight. So I like to use and take advantage of the line command. So here's where I type in L for line, and I would just pick that first point and drop in a line. Right click, repeat. That's the next point, and I'm just going to drop that in. Where those two lines intersect, I know that that's where this roof surface should snap to, and that will keep things nice and straight for me. I can then just delete out those construction lines, and I've now changed the shape of that roof. So again, when I look at that in my 3D view, I can now see that it's changed the shape of just that one edge for me. So again, a lot of different tools that are available to you when you're trying to create or edit your surfaces. So that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about with the surfaces tool. Now, we do also use surfaces for other objects as well. So we talked about using it for roofs. You can also use the surfaces tool for a variety of different tools. So I'm just going to go back in here and I'm going to select surfaces. And as you can see, you can use your surfaces tool for your floor surfaces, ceiling surfaces, and your roof surfaces. You can also use this for countertops as an example, or maybe you want to add in just something flat on your site, like a pad or something like that. You can use the surfaces tool to do that as well. The same principles will apply. You just simply pick the points of where you want that surface to go, and then once you've specified where it's going, you can make it slope or you can keep it flat. So if I just select this 3/4 inch OSB sheathing, and I just pick my points to draw in where I want that sheathing to go. When I right click and I select finish, you'll notice that this is a blue line and this one here is a dotted line. That's just denoting the difference between the two. One is a floor, one is a roof. But here's where you would make sure that you have this set up the way that you want. Typically your floors are going to be flat, so you're going to want that to be set to 0. So you're going to lock it in at 0. And now you're going to make sure that this is set up to be at the correct height. So again, this is relative to the location you're inserting it on. So right now I'm at 1 foot 5.5 inches above the terrain. I'm going to leave that at 0 because that's where my floor sits, is 1 foot 5.5 inches above the terrain. So I'm going to say okay. When I select that surface, you'll see that that 1 foot 5.5 inches is now being displayed as my point of where it is inserted above the terrain itself. So again, different tools will allow you to insert these depending on what it is you're trying to create. So we just added in a floor. If I add in a ceiling, again, same thing. You're just going to select the ceiling that you want. We'll just do a 1/2 inch drywall ceiling. And when you add this one in, you'll notice again that it will have a different color. And this one will be an orange line. And again, we're going to lock that in at 0. But this time I want this to be 8 feet above my ground floor. So I'm going to type in 8 feet. It will automatically adjust the upper point for me because it's locking it in at 0. And I can say okay. And now that one is going to be 9 foot 5.5 inches above the terrain. So again, how you add these surfaces in will help achieve the design results that you're looking for. And one thing I showed you that I kind of touched on real quick was the Convert Roof to Surfaces tool. Majority of the time when you use the roof option here, roof by perimeter or roof by picking points, you're creating a parametric roof within the program. What we mean by that is the roof itself is attached as one whole unit. So when I go in and I say roof by picking points, and I drop in a roof that looks like this, and I say finish, this is one cohesive unit. If I make an adjustment here, or if I select this edge, the entire roof is selected. Majority of your roofs will be created using this tool, but in some complex situations, you may need to convert your roof to surfaces to achieve the final result. And that's where you can take a roof that you've added in, and then you can go in. I'm just going to change these edges to be gables, and we'll go right-click properties, and I'm just going to change that from a hip to a gable. I'm going to say okay, and I can now go in and say right-click, and I can now convert that to surfaces, and I can say convert to surfaces, and I want that to be an asphalt shingle, and I say okay. And what this does is it will go in and it will automatically take this and break it into the individual surfaces that make up that roof. So now I can manipulate just this edge or just this edge of that roof to achieve the desired design results that I want for this particular roof shape. So being able to convert your roof to surfaces will help you achieve a larger complex design for any type of roof that you're trying to create. So that basically covers everything that I wanted to talk about surfaces and how you can manipulate them. So I'm going to open up the questions area. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to go ahead and type that in, and I will do my best to answer them for you. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the class, I will also be sending out a PDF that covers everything that we've talked about today. So you'll be able to try this out on your own. And if you have any questions while trying it out, please don't hesitate. Give our support department a call. They'll be able to help you out with any questions you may have as well as it pertains to the surfaces command. So again, I'm just going to open up that question section. So again, if you do have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and type that in now, and I will do my best to answer those for you. While I wait for those questions to come in, I'm just going to go over a quick overview of what we've talked about today. So today's class was on surfaces, and we went through the process of how you can add in a surface using the surfaces command and picking your points. We've focused on how you can insert your points, be it a flat surface or if your surface is going to have a slope to it. We then looked at how you can connect your surfaces together using your Intersect Planes option. We talked about how you could go through and you can take those edges and you can manipulate them with the roof edge type editor to create your fascias, your gables, your hip, and your ridges. And we also looked at how to take a surface and you can add a surface in as a roof, as a ceiling, or as a floor. So I'm not seeing any questions yet, so I'm just going to leave that open just for another minute, just in case someone is typing here. Again, like I mentioned, I will be sending out an email with this PDF, so you will be able to try this out on your own and give it a try. And again, if you have any questions at that point, you can contact our support department, and they'll be able to help you out with any questions you may have as well. Well, there doesn't seem to be any questions, so I want to thank everybody for attending today. I look forward to speaking with you all again very soon, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much, everyone.